If there's one thing I still have to remind myself daily, after making videos for around 30 years, it's that you have to go and film something to have a video. You can sit and talk about it or think about it, but I like to film first and think later. And today was one of those days where I'd been thinking to myself for a couple of days, it's Halloween, I have a new fun camera and a couple of exciting lenses, and that I should go out and film on Halloween. However, the reality is I was comfortable at home and I didn't really want to go out, but I'd made the decision to stick to my plan. And I'm really glad that I did, because I do believe that if you work hard, it won't always happen, but that sometimes you really do get your reward. Hence, today I filmed 3 different scenes as such, all with the intention being to challenge the camera and the lenses in different ways. The first scene was with my nephews getting ready for Halloween. My sister always makes her house look lovely, and I knew that the mixed LEDs and different lights would cause the camera havoc, hence it was too good an opportunity to not use. Secondly, I wanted to go deep into the New Forest, to a place which has the most witches in the United Kingdom. It's dark, it would be good for testing the camera and lens in super low light conditions. And finally, I had it in my head that I wanted to go into the local city, Southampton, and grab some shots. And I didn't want to film anyone without permission, or at least asking them for permission. And Southampton's not always the best place, it can be a bit rowdy late at night, etc. And it was getting late. However, I went into the town, I saw some lights in the sky, and I decided to follow the lights and see what was happening, and I stumbled upon a show. And this show was a great experience. Not only was it a nice show to see, but it was a great opportunity for me to test the camera further in a sort of show state, which is what I'm kind of used to. I filmed many events and shows over the years, so I was really happy that I pushed myself tonight. Definitely got some interesting footage to look at, to talk about. So join me on a Halloween night of chill filming. I didn't aim to be perfect with every shot. In fact, at this stage with the camera, I want to look at it as much as what works and what doesn't work. This is a learning curve for me, and I hope that you will enjoy learning what I learn along the way. Peace. Handheld. Scene 1. My sister's house, my nephews, and the first thing I want to say is gimbal or handheld. I wanted to film everything handheld. I'm a bit of an old school documentary maker. I like handheld. I like gimbals. I've had a few gimbals, but my heart still cries for handheld. We'll talk about that later. Secondly, variable ND. I don't have a variable ND anymore. What the hell is this? I'd put an ND filter on the camera, and the minute I walked inside I realised I needed to get that ND filter off. X, you're under attack. Hiya. The kids were excited to see me, but everything was super dark because the ND filter, the K&F Concept ND filter, which I really like, was open to its full. Secondly, as you can see, the LEDs are creating flickering. So I was trying to flick through the shutter speed, and I have it set up so that I can do the fine detail, the flickering TV kind of level shutter speed. But it still takes ages. It was an interesting start, let's say. Who's doing trick-or-treating tonight? What time are you doing it? About 5 to 6? No, I'm going to leave about 5 o'clock. So maybe if you go outside with me for like 5 minutes before I go. Hello Tyler, how are you doing? Let me see with the photo. There you go, look amazing. And what I also struggle with is this beautiful lens, F1.4, but I have to go onto the screen to change the aperture. I like an aperture ring, I can't deny. Without an aperture ring, I'm kind of a bit lost. But it's one of those things, I appreciate that for the money we spend, and not every lens is going to give you everything that you need. I'm also still struggling a little bit with the autofocus. I didn't seem to have this with my Canon cameras, but for some reason I find it going in and out of focus a little bit too much. I've always got to touch where I want it to be in focus. I guess that's on F1.4, there's, maybe, possibly, but it also does it on the F4 as well, if I'm honest. So kind of again, as much as I love the autofocus and it gives some new technology which I simply have never had before, I'm thinking this isn't really very good. I always want to switch back to manual focus and just ride the focus myself. We then did some super slow motion, 120 frames a second, and I could just see straight away that I was not going to get with the shutter at 240. There was nothing I could do Even if I was playing with the shutter, there was nothing I could really do to fix the flickering of the LEDs, so it's kind of a write-off. I think the stage that I'm at is because you do get such good quality with some things, I recognise I'm going to have to make some other sacrifices in other areas. When I walked up here, I thought that's the best pumpkin. So before dinner, the boys are allowed to go outside and play football for a few minutes, and this was something that I was really looking forward to doing, to testing the 16mm Sigma lens outside, handheld, and with autofocus. I think I put on active stabilisation for this, and you can't deny it's pretty good. Not just the stabilisation, but the autofocus in general. I think I've switched this to wide, so it should just pick up everything. I can override it and touch certain subjects to make sure they focus up. It's not perfect, but overall it's so much better than so many other options that there are available. I really like this. Everything before was active stabilisation, now we're on standard stabilisation. How you doing, Jax? Good. With the autofocus here, it kept picking up the pumpkins on Jax's shirt instead of Jax's actual face, so I had to keep touch focus to focus on his face, but it kept pulling out of focus. Again, really, what can I say? We know these sort of things do happen. No. It's frustrating when it does happen, but equally, when it does get focus, it's so good that I'm sort of willing to work with that. And then it was time to go indoors for some of my sister's famous green mac and cheese. And as you can see with the autofocus, some of it is amazing, some of it not so good. I'm almost willing to say that that's down to user error, new camera, new lens. It's probably me messing around with settings. But overall, there has been some absolutely wonderful footage in this sequence, and I would have no problems using this camera in kind of a documentary setup like this. Then I drove 40 miles to the New Forest to Burley, and I gave up on some handheld and I thought I would give it a go on a gimbal. Anywhere in the New Forest at night time is a really dark place to film. There is very little street light around. The shop lights looked amazing, but the place in general, even though they had uplighters in the trees, there was this big green wash, and it created a great atmosphere, and usually it would destroy cameras. There's the old saying, red bleeds, RGB. If there's a green wash, a blue wash or a red wash, you're going to have problems. But I thought this camera held up excellently, and it works really well. The car lights made it look really nice. I found this sort of like pop-up pumpkin shop, which looked good. The autofocus does struggle in the dark, but when it gets it right, again, it looks really good. And even with the green wash, you can see slightly out of focus there, but it's generally in focus. And I was really impressed with how nice it sort of held up. This is the 1.4 lens to the max. The car lights are what actually light things up, and I wanted to get the dark so that we could have a look at the sort of, see how much noise there is, and it's sort of noiseless. It's so good. This is ISO 2500, I think, for pretty much everything here, and you can see it holds up really well. My gimbal work, I'm not stabilising any of this. This is just sort of like a rough gimbal. I didn't really spend too much time to balance it. But as you can see, it looks absolutely lovely for what it is. And again, that focus is just incredible. This autofocus is probably, when it's working like this, it's beyond anything that I've had, unless we actually have a focus puller. It's really impressive. Now, I was walking the streets of Burley, it was a bit dark, and then I saw a pig. I thought it was a dog, but it was actually just a lone pig walking the streets at night. Pannage season, which it is in the New Forest at the moment, is for a couple of weeks when they let the pigs roam the streets to eat acorns. And I sort of, with my gimbal, I got a bit carried away and I wanted to film the pig, but equally I didn't want to trip over any curbs because it goes from light to dark very quickly. But I wanted to chase this pig, and yeah, it was just a great sight to see a pig walking around a town like this on Halloween night. Really sort of gave it that quintessentially English feel. And then I didn't stop at the pub, but then I was off to Southampton. I was going to use the gimbal here, but my gimbal had run out of battery. I hadn't charged it before I left home, so I had to go handheld. If you take your time with this camera, I think this was just standard stabilisation. You can get some really nice shots. I used to spend a lot of time practicing handheld. And as you can see, F1.4 looks absolutely beautiful. Now I stumbled across this show, which was, I thought I'd make the most of filming it. It had some lovely lights here. It was a really nice opportunity to sort of like, again, see what it works like, to see what this camera works like, and the lens coupled with the camera works like in a show situation. And as you can see, there was obviously a lot of light here, but it was still quite dark. I thought it looked really, really outstandingly good for the basic effort that I put in. Now I've switched to the F4 SONY F4 18-105 so that I can zoom in, and it just looks so good. All in all, this experience, these 3 scenes, let's say, as much as things weren't perfect, a lot of that was probably down to my being new to the camera and the lens. But in general, I just thought it looked absolutely stunning for a very easy to film situation, and really, really pleased. And that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I'll do more over the next few weeks. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.